It's time for our first live event rundown of the year. We're doing it in a bit of a new format this time. We're talking about Motorama happening in Pennsylvania just under a month ago. This exciting event had the 12-pound class, the 30-pound class, and the sportsman division. And we're talking all about the 30-pound class here today, led by a robot named Nautilus. We've never heard of it before, but it's a damn good robot. We're talking about that robot and many more right here, right now on the Combot Collective.
Welcome to the Combot Collective.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode here at the Combot Collective. Bring everything you want to know from the world of robot combat, from the heavyweight class to the fleetweight class, from Battlebots to the live circuit, where we talk about today. And as I said in the intro, just under a month ago, happening in mid-February, it was Motorama Robot Conflict, hosted by the NERC, and this is one of the biggest East Coast robot combat events that isn't directly affiliated with the NHRL. Very exciting event. It's been happening for now 20 years. The first event happening in 2003. Battlebots teams from all eras have competed here. Some bringing smaller versions of their Battlebots. Some getting their start here, moving on to Battlebots. So there's a lot of history here. And originally this was going to be one big video. But as you'll see here, we're breaking this down into 3 different parts. And we're capping it off here with the granddaddy of it all. This is the 30-pound featherweight class. One of the 3 most popular weight classes in the world right now, I'd say. Probably behind beetleweight and heavyweight. A lot of very interesting machines here. A lot of smaller versions of Battlebots heavyweights. A lot of teams looking to try to maybe make these robots into Battlebots heavyweights. And we have a rookie winning the championship here. That's going to be a very interesting story. But we also have our defending champion here. A lot of very unique robots. A lot of NHRL regulars, as you'd expect with an East Coast event like this. So hey, let's not waste too much time. Jump right into this. But first, as always at the Combot Collective, we're talking about Motorama, and Motorama has a lot of teams affiliated with this website. This is robotsruinmylife.com, the merchandise provider for numerous robot combat teams, including teams we're going to be talking about in this video, such as Omega Team with Little Rip, Star Child and Star Father. They have merchandise on that website. They were featured in past Motorama events. We also have Team Shredded Bro. They were present at the event. They have merchandise on the website, along with numerous other robot combat teams, which you're going to see in this episode, and you're going to see in the upcoming Norwalk Havoc event on March 18th, and on Battlebots as well. These teams are everywhere. So if you're looking for a little bit of robot combat merchandise, check out the link in the description below, robotsruinmylife.com, for t-shirts, buttons, pins, poker tips, pizza boxes, bags, all sorts of fun robot combat merchandise. Be sure to check them out. But now, here we go. We talked about the hobbyweights. We talked about the sportsmen. We talked about the smaller classes. We discussed everything from this Motorama event, but the big class, the main class, is 30-pound featherweight division, 30 pounds and up, as we'll see here in a minute. A lot of exciting robots from both NERC, NHRL, and even some international competitors. We'll get to those here in a second. Unique designs, full-body spinners, vertical spinners, flippers, all sorts of machines, plenty of regulars from Motorama. But as we always do here at the Combot Collective, first, at least what we've done these last 2 videos, is going to be the trend moving on. Let's talk about the notables here initially. And for notables, we talked about a lot of NHRL finalists in the hobbyweight division. We have more here. Robots like Phenomenon and Omega Team's Marathon showed up, but they did not perform like they do usually in Connecticut and other events, but they still did okay. They finished 8th place and 9th place respectively, with Phenomenon going 3-2, and Marathon, a former NHRL event winner, going back to the March event, if you remember that, and a 3rd place robot at Motorama last year, ended up going 2-2. Big time upset here for the Omega team. I know I'm pretty bummed out to see it. Hopefully we can see Marathon bounce back later on in the year. And like I mentioned, international robots did show up for the featherweight class. 2, in fact, both representing Canada. Familiar names, Crimson Snow and Cemetery Wind, both showing up from the Great White North. Not having as much success as their sportsman counterparts, though. I believe Crimson Snow went 0-2, Cemetery Wind 1-2. Kind of looking like how Canada did the World Baseball Classic. Hate to say it. Unfortunate showing here for them. So hopefully we can see that team bounce back. Another team I want to see bounce back. Team Forge and Farm, we're back from New Jersey here again with their semi-active 30-pounder cultivator, a classic farm-built four-wheel drive wedge. It went 1-2 with its sheer durability last year, but it was not so lucky this year. Took a step back, 0-2 finish against some heavy hitters like Beam. And another new favorite of mine that I discovered in last year's event was a robot named Nevermore. It is a track design, and it has sort of the vibe of a late 90s kind of design. Think about robots like Wedgehog from back in the Robot Wars days. Very unique robot, very nice design, very sleek. It went 2-2 here with a massive win versus Marathon in the first round. One of the few upset robots that managed to take the big drum bot out. And talking about more favorites, though, from 2022 Motorama Pipe Bomb. It is a 30-pound love child with huge and axe backwards. Sometimes too powerful for its own good. One of the only full-body drums in the 30-pound class. Lovely design. Had internal issues last year, but this year it just outright struggled against better competition. I believe it went 1-2 overall. Did okay in the Rumble. And two other fun robots were Susquehanna Boxcar and Big Cookie, two robots we've seen at NERC and NHRL respectively in the recent past. And both these robots brought quite a food theme to the arena, with Big Cookie being, well, a big bristlebot full-body spinning cookie, and Susquehanna Boxcar, a 30-pound version of Deferred Maintenance, the Robotica champion, had an obsession of attaching various foods on its arm as a primary weapon. I believe we saw papaya and a, I don't know my fruit, so probably that's wrong. I believe we saw a papaya and a cucumber as weapons in various portions of the event. Awesome to see. But now let's get to this stacked 30-pound featherweight tournament. I should not say 30-pound because we'll get to our champion here in a second. A crazy story here. But we'll start with 6th place, and let's talk about Lil Rip, who you might not recognize given the name change, but I guarantee you know this robot. This is the original Ripperoni, which debuted at this event last year, going 3-2, but more notably reached the NHRL finals in December last year as well. Not as successful there, but it really got some eyes on it, enough to get it into Battlebots. And in round 1, it faced Canada's Cemetery Wind, and it looked more like how Ripperoni did versus Gruff here, losing control in the opening seconds of the fight, but lucky for Lil Rip. Cemetery Wind always had reliability issues, more here. It broke down in the opening seconds of the fight, leaving the pizza to take the pie, but not before Lil Ripperoni would take a slice out of itself by breaking its weapon on the arena wall. Thankfully, they were able to repair it for their next fight, where they took on the other robot in round 2. Yes, that was its name. Rip left its flank open momentarily, but kept it mostly academic. 2 strikes to the other robot and a tap out in under a minute. And then in round 3, Lil Rip faced an undercutter in Team Robo Gym of Deadlift fame's Roundhouse. And both these robots would start off with a pair of brutal weapon-on-weapon collisions, and these collisions were enough to knock out Roundhouse's weapon. And, despite some more serious instability, Lil Rip would once again manage to control the fight's remainder with some solid strikes, taking it all the way to the full 3 minutes somehow. A judge's decision win here for Lil Rip. And now, moving forward here, another big-time horizontal spinner in round 4, moving up from Roundhouse to now take on the defending Motorama champion, Beam. Like I said, monster horizontal spinner versus monster vertical spinner matchup. And Lil Rip drew first blood here, but Beam immediately clapped back, ripping a wheel off of Lil Ripperoni. And there would be some attempt at some defensive driving here by Anna Zolnikov with Lil Rip, but unfortunately, the big-time spinner would tap out. Smart, because there is a loser's bracket, since the damage was already done, and they wanted to stop more damage from being done. Who knew who they have to face? Well, here's who they have to face. An all-defense robot going from all offense to all defense in EVA. This final fight was a very frustrating one for Omega Team, who would be outplayed and outdriven by the long 4 EVA for the whole 3 minutes. Lil Rip would manage 3 hard strikes to EVA's side, but never managed to rip anything off of the sturdy little robot. This would be a judge's decision loss, and Lil Rip would have to sell for 6th place. Sad to see my Omega Team crew go down like that, but still very happy for them. Hopefully we can see them bounce back at Battlebots later on in the year, NHRL, and other events. But now let's move forward here to Blackhole Frog. Blackhole Frog comes from a family team which may have been at Battlebots 2009. I'm not too sure, but this robot is as all business as this sport gets. It is an all-black metal body with 2 wheels and a big fuck-off wedge as its weapon. And as far as I can tell, this is an NERC rookie and one that looked quite impressive for its first ever event. First appearing in round 2 after a round 1 bye, Blackhole Frog would first fight fan favorite full-body spinner Big Cookie. This strange full-body spinner landed a few strikes to Blackhole Frog before being eventually wore down by the wedge, breaking internally from the impacts. Blackhole Frog moved on here and then faced another unique design in the shredded vertical spinner Nevermore, who had no weapon for the fight. They had a lot of vertical spinner issues for the entire event, sadly. This let Blackhole Frog, who had much better wedge game, dominate this fight fairly easily. That was it for the easy matches for Blackhole Frog. It was then time to fight a 45-pound vertical spinner in Nautilus. This was a battle between simplicity and complexity, and the latter would prevail in this one. In just one hit, looking like a heavyweight fight here, Nautilus slowly drove up to Blackhole Frog and spiked it right into the ceiling for a big-time KO. And the Frog had to go from a high-level spinner to a high-level control bot with Lockout and losers. But sadly, the family crew could not get ready in time, so behind the scenes, the Frog would sadly croak on the operating table. It would forfeit and take 5th place at this event. If the team had not competed since 2009, if what my research is showing is correct, decent enough performance here by the team. Hopefully we can see them do more in the future. Always like seeing Virginia robots do well. But now let's get on to a familiar face here with a new robot, at least to some people, me at least. EVA, built by Remy de Guzman with YO Robotics. This guy is known for robots like Wicked Wedge and Weird Flex, machines that we've talked about here in the past. And this machine follows the same kind of style, all about control and aggression rather than damage. Shades of Dragon Princess, I would say, with the design. Very colorful with those long main forks as the weapon. And in round 1, EVA would face the full-body drum pipe bomb, a perfect counter for EVA, especially with those forks that I just mentioned. But these forks ended up being almost a kryptonite for the robot here. They got caught in the arena floor quite a bit, and this forced EVA to take a bit of a boring fight style for this matchup. They drove the entire fight backwards, pushing pipe bomb around for most of the fight like a hockey puck. It had a couple of hard impacts, but survived all of them to win a split judges decision win here. A shaky start for EVA, but round 2 would go a little bit better here as it met Charles Guan's Susquehanna boxcar and looked a lot more like a giant D2 for this fight, using anti-horizontal spinner wedge up front. They obviously didn't want to use those forks for a little while given the state of the arena floor with them. Match would look a lot more like a sportsman fight, wedge versus lifting shovel, and the wedge would take an easy judges decision here. Not really much to talk about, being just a basic control fight. And then round 3, Eva finally faced some competition, a little bit of adversity, taking on the brand new 45-pound vertical spinner Nautilus. EVA fought with a 15-pound weight disadvantage, but still managed to push Nautilus around quite a good bit for this fight. It managed to take some vicious strikes from the shuffling spinner's discs, but managed to go the whole way. This fight went the full 3 minutes, and the match would just barely go to Nautilus. But I do feel like, personally, arena malfunctions cost EVA control early on in the fight. If you watch the stream, you would notice, even the commentator was talking about it, big strikes to the arena would stop the timer or cause the tap out button or certain things to hit mid-match. Believe this happened during this fight, during a pin EVA was doing. This forced a pause in the matchup. EVA had to back off after the pin, and Nautilus took control afterwards. I don't know. It's a whole mess. EVA, though, lost this matchup on close judges' decisions, sending it to the losers round. And EVA's first losers round matchup would be no cakewalk. Another big-time challenge here. It faced Marathon, and this time they would use a set of anti-horizontal spinner rams, which did not work well at first. EVA would be bullied for the opening minute, but the face-to-face strategy would eventually pay off, as the Marathon's drum would soon start acting a little bit finicky halfway through the fight, leaving itself prone for EVA to pin it up onto the wall for an upset. Marathon was stuck, left dead in the water, eliminated fairly early on like we mentioned, so EVA would move on, and in its next losers fight, it would challenge the wooden pushbot Homer, and this certainly would be no Odyssey. Yet another tedious pushing fight for EVA, with 2 robots fighting the floor more than they were fighting each other. Less than a minute in, Hover would lose half of its drive and would be playing shoddy defense against EVA, who took control of the remainder of the fight, winning a judge's decision there, and then EVA pretty deep run here at this point, then moved on to take on the terrifying glass cannon Lil Rip, a fight that we just discussed, and EVA would once again rock those long keep away forks, finally gained the confidence to bring him back. As we just mentioned, EVA would win this fight on a judge's decision, eliminating Lil Rip and moving EVA into the final four. And after such a deadly spinner like Lil Rip, it would be back to control bots for Remy de Guzman, and it would be now one of Motorama's best, in fact. EVA versus RoboJim's Lockout for a chance to place in the top three. And the keep away forks once again return for a third fight here, and they help make this one hell of a fight at first. Very close, but after being flipped midway through, the momentum would shift all the way over to Lockout, as RoboJim would dominate the fight's remainder with numerous rams and slams to EVA, and this would give Lockout and RoboJim Robotics the judges' nod. EVA would just barely miss the podium here, 4th place, but still a very good run by Remy de Guzman with his new robot. Love seeing him move up the weight class ranks. Can't wait to see this robot more in the future. But now let's talk a little bit more in detail about Lockout and RoboJim Robotics. We've already brought them up here quite a bit. This is their first competitive appearance since announcing Deadlift's retirement a few months back. And today, yes, like I mentioned, we're talking about Lockout, the 3rd place robot at this event. It is essentially a mini version of Deadlift, and it placed 5th in 2022's Motorama competition. And Lockout would face Beam in the very first fight of this entire Motorama 2023 event. Great way to kick it off, and I am surprised to see these two robots meet so early when I was watching this stream. Very great fight to kick it off, though. Lockout dominated and outplayed Beam for the full 3 minutes, throwing it all over the arena, but taking a little bit of damage in the process, enough apparently that it would lose the judge's decision here, a call that I certainly disagreed with. So it was on to a very big loser's run for Lockout here. It received a bye in round 1 and then faced 4-wheel drive vertical spinner Deathpact in losers round 2, and immediately Deathpact had weapon issues, and this would allow Lockout to control the entire fight with a knockout just over midway through the fight, somewhere a little bit over the 1 minute 30-second mark. Another bye in losers round 3, putting Lockout into losers round 4, where it faced a formidable spinner in 2022 NHRL finalist Phenomenon. First time we're really going to get a chance to talk about Phenomenon in this episode. It was a battle of fork game here, and while Phenomenon's forks were lower, the more narrow, longer forks on Lockout would manage to prevail here, controlling large portions of this fight and eventually flipping Phenomenon over, where the spinner would manage to ingest its own weapon belt, leading to an upset knockout here, taking out the NHRL finalists fairly early in the tournament. They just missed being talked about in this episode. It's unfortunate, but Lockout would move on here. They would receive another bye and lose round 5 with the aforementioned Blackhole Frog missing the cut. And like I said, we just talked about the fight. It then faced and loses round 6, the top level control bot in EVA. Lockout was decently rested for this fight, while EVA had that aforementioned battle with Lil Rip, a 3-minute war. So this would not be a fight about damage, fortunately, for EVA, but it was a fight about control. Nose to nose at first, but like I mentioned, Lockout would manage to take the second half of this fight after EVA was flipped over, winning the judge's decision and allowing it to move on yet again here. But here's where the buck stopped. Lockout's impressive loser's run would have to stop somewhere. It didn't receive a bye yet again. It reached its peak here, and it had to face, once again, the robot which sent it in the losers in the first place, Beam, in a losers finals matchup, winner taking on Nautilus in the finale, and this fight would go a much similar way to the opening fight of this event, with the only difference being a slightly more unstable bar on Beam. Lockout drove Beam all over the arena, ramming them into the wall numerous times, but they just could not stop the blade on Beam until the very end of the fight, and at that point, it was just too late. The judges had seen enough, and Beam would take another judge's decision victory here on similar criteria, moving it forward, while Lockout would have to settle for 3rd place, bronze. RoboJim moves up from 5th place in 2022, 2 places higher, but you know the team wants to move in the first position. I'm surprised these guys haven't gone to NHRL. I feel like they'd do a lot better in that arena with that judges' criteria, with Robotier judges probably be more forgiving. We'll have to see what they do. Hopefully we'll see a more active RoboJim in 2023. But now let's get to the monsters of the 30-pound division, our top 2, and we start off with Beam, another robot which has somehow not appeared in NHRL yet. It is almost always a finalist and usually a winner in whatever 30-pound class it enters. In fact, it is the 2022 Motorama defending featherweight champion. And like we mentioned, it faced Lockout in round 1, an electric opener. It looked reliable and it delivered a lot of sturdy strikes, but it was mostly out-controlled by Lockout. Beam would win this fight on a controversial decision, just eking it out on damage. And then in round 2, more defense-oriented robots for Beam here. It would take on New Jersey's Cultivator, who was using what looked to be a branding iron as a spinner killer for this fight. Very Forge and Farm, and we would sadly see immediate drive issues for Cultivator, allowing Beam an easy knockout win here. It's first of the event. And then in round 3, make it 3 for 3 in terms of spinner killers, as it was now on to Team Copperhead teammate robot Wedgeham. And Wedgeham has a bit of a history of giving Beam problems in other events, such as Colorado's Angry Vehicle competition. So Beam fitted itself with a very unique UHMW keep-away panel of sorts for this fight, but it failed to do much. Wedgeham dominated, just like how Lockout did, but once again, judging would go for Beam here. I mean, I get it. Beam's an exciting robot. It's very durable. It's very destructive, but in multiple occasions during this event, the judging felt very Battlebots 2016-esque. It felt like they were all about the spinner. Commentary defended it a little bit, but I certainly wasn't a fan. I thought it was disappointing. But after 3 tanks in winners round 4, Beam finally got a robot of high kinetic energy level in Lil Rip. We talked about it earlier. Both these robots gave each other their best strike to kick the fight off. Beam would take a wheel off Lil Rip, and Lil Rip would tap out shortly after. Moving Beam on to the winners semifinals, where the horizontal spinner would counter Nautilus for the very first time in its career, and Beam would enter not only dealing with a weight disadvantage, but also a power disadvantage, as Beam would lose every single exchange in this fight. Not something it's used to in grand fashion here. Sparks were flying all over the Motorama 30-pound Big Bot arena, and sadly, Beam was the one dying. It would hold strong but tap out eventually around the fight's halfway point, sending our defending champion the losers. And like we mentioned with the Lockout fight, its losers run began the same way its winners run did, with a judge's decision victory against Lockout. The only difference in this fight would be that Beam would be fighting with a bit of an unstable blade thanks to the absolute ass-kicking it got from Nautilus. But same kind of situation here. Beam wins on a judge's decision after looking reliable enough to take the win on a control robot that just couldn't do any flips, couldn't kill the weapon really. Very unfortunate that Lockout had to go out third, but that put Beam into the finals against the robot you've heard quite a bit about now in this episode. Let's finally talk about it. Nautilus, one of the heaviest robots at this show, weighing in at 45 pounds with its shuffling legs. It is a brand new featherweight, but it certainly looks the part here. All black with that vicious red vertical spinner up front. And in round 1, Nautilus's first ever fight, it had an easy opponent to showcase against, the wooden 4-wheel drive plow Homer. And Homer showed good restraint and aggression early on with that sturdy plow, but it only take one hardy strike from Nautilus to knock out the wooden robot. Moving Nautilus on to round 2, where it would meet Dark Horse, an impressive looking 2-wheel drive vertical spinner. And Nautilus had a slow start, but would eventually outpower and bully Dark Horse, using its weight advantage for another easy knockout win here. And then in round 3, moving forward, Nautilus would get its second pusher in EVA. We talked about this fight at the start of the episode. Some control issues for Nautilus at first, but the robot would get its bearings for the fight's second minute, doing a good bit of damage in that window despite the shuffler issues. Nautilus wins a very close judge's decision. And then in winners round 4, Nautilus would get its third push spot out of the bracket with Blackhole Frog, another fight we talked about earlier. Big time hit here, maybe the hit of the entire event, spiking Blackhole Frog into the ceiling. One hit KO, Blackhole Frog literally couldn't recover. This showed off just how durable, just how powerful Nautilus is, a real threat to the championship. And speaking of championship, next thing we know, the first time Robot found itself in the winner's semifinals facing our defending champion Beam. And we just talked about this fight. You would not know who's the defending champ and who's the rookie given how this fight went. A shellacking delivered to Beam by Nautilus. White sparks and pieces of the champ flying all over the arena. Beam would tap out and be beaten in under a minute 30. And that sets up our final here, as after being given a good bit of time to rest, Nautilus would go to battle versus Beam once again, a very quick turnaround rematch after that battle versus Lockout. So 2 straight rematches here for Beam, our Motorama defending champion, who in the finals last year managed to take out a big time vertical spinner and Yahoo, but it just seems like Nautilus was a different beast. 15 more pounds of weight, a brutal, focused vertical spinner weapon, impressive reliability for a new robot. It only had issues in one fight against EVA. The shuffling machine was 5-0 up to that point, with 4 knockouts in the process. And with that now quite unstable horizontal spinner bar, we were just going to have to see what happened here. And predictably, things just did not go too hot for our defending Motorama champion. In fact, I think that's putting it lightly. Beam was wobbly out the gate, and Nautilus took it right to the bean of Beam. Weapon-to-weapon impact, followed by 2 more, which busted the top panel of Beam, and even managed to damage the top of the Motorama arena. Nightmare level breach almost. Everyone's safe. The arena's safe. We're all alive. We're all fine. But within 18 seconds, the champion Beam, our defending champion, was dead in the water yet again. And this fight would overall, factoring the countdown, took just 36 seconds. Our new champion Nautilus was crowned the new king of Motorama, and what a monster of a robot this is. Embarrassed a lot of regulars, took out a lot of spinner killers in the process. Like I mentioned, only EVA, the only robot which gave it trouble. MVP of the whole event, I'd say. Shocker of the whole event. Crazy design. Shufflebot's doing good. You love to see it. And especially with Nautiloid, the small version of Nautilus taking third in Beetles. Rad Robotics, certainly looking pretty rad here. This machine is going to be a menace in any featherweight arena, whether it be in Colorado, Florida, or even Connecticut. I think this robot would take the NHRL finals pretty easily. Give Emulsifier, Knockoff Wide, Toro, any robot a challenge. Let's see it, people. Let's get more featherweight international action happening. These machines are just too good. But that's going to do it for us here at the Combot Collective. Finishing discussion here for a Motorama class, a very exciting Motorama class. And that's going to wrap it up for us. That's our very last class. Absolutely awesome series. Thank you guys so much if you watched all 3 of the episodes. And I am your host, as always, Sterling Brown, aka Sterling TXTG. That's where you can find me on Instagram. As always, the Combot Collective, sponsored by robotsruinmylife.com. Check out the Team Wake and Bake t-shirt giveaway, medium-sized t-shirt giveaway, which is currently in the description below. We have a Gleam giveaway for that. You get the t-shirt, you get some TCC and Robots Ruin My Life sticker merchandise. It's a good deal. Check it out. Link in the description below. Also in the description below, our social media, Facebook and Instagram, both there. News posts go there. Video posts go there. Keep up to date with us there. We also have our Discord server growing by the week. New people joining it every week. All of our video news goes there first. And we have, Robot Combat fans there, Robot Combat competitors there, showing off their designs, getting input. It's a great little group of people. And as always, here on the YouTube page, please like the video if you're enjoying what you see here in this little Motorama series of videos running down the live event fights, running down the live event classes. This is probably how I'm going to do these live event videos now in the future, cutting them into 3 parts or cutting them into, how many weight classes I need to cut them into. I feel like this is more streamlined, more smooth, makes for more videos, and you're not just watching one big, chuggy, long video. We'll see how it goes, but yes. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't as well. Ring the bell icon. Comment as well. Give us your thoughts. But that's going to wrap it up for us here at the Combot Collective. We will see you next time.
This was the Combot Collective. Find us on Instagram and Discord.